Hello everybody, my name is Hayden Goodrich and today we'll be covering some inclusive practices and adjustments that can be used to support students who are diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Now, as educators, it is our responsibility to provide a quality education that is inclusive of all students. This inclusive practice is actually a legal requirement of all teachers under the legislative document Disability Standards for Education 2005. Now, this explicitly states that teachers are legally obligated to provide an educational experience that is accessible to students with disabilities. And the main standard within this legislation that we'll be focusing on is the standard of making reasonable adjustments for students. Let's quickly go over some of the characteristics and behaviors that we may see in a student with ADHD. Firstly, it's really important that we address the misconception that students with ADHD are only those who are hyperactive or can't sit still. This is not the case and can often lead to students flying under the radar if we as teachers do not fully understand what ADHD consists of. Now, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual provides us with a great outline of the three types of ADHD and their distinctive characteristics. The first being the predominantly inattentive type, where students are easily distracted, have difficulty following instructions, and struggle with organization. The next is the hyperactive impulsive type, which consists of mainly the more obvious characteristics, such as calling out, fidgeting, excessive talking, and are often restless. And the last, we have the combined type where students show behaviors from both categories. Now, just by looking at this list, we can instantly see how detrimental this can be for students learning and other students learning as well. This is why it is so important for us to use evidence-based strategies to help these students. I understand it can be stressful for teachers, but at the end of the day, it's just as stressful for these kids. We need to remember that they can't help it. Prior to any intervention taking place, the first step is to always use formal or informal assessment to establish the individual learning needs of the student. And the evidence-based practice that we'll be focusing on to support this deficit is that of creating a learning environment that utilizes explicit procedures and deconstruction of given tasks. This involves providing students with explicit instructions that have minimal steps and are short, succinct, and easy to follow. And what we have right here is an example of what would be an effective instructional visual aid for students to refer to. This allows students to visually see what stage they may be up to in a lesson, whilst also providing them with explicit instructions of what is expected of them. And in a primary class context, this strategy is applied to the independent stage of the gradual release of responsibility model, as during this time, ADHD students may find it difficult to understand what is required of them or may struggle to stay on task. Another method of deconstructing procedures and limit cognitive overload is to provide differentiated worksheets. These worksheets would both reduce the expected length of written tasks and decrease the quantity of questions displayed per page. I will also stress the importance of providing adequate breaks by pacing and allowing for extra time. This can be done by either a class activity like a brain break or individually by providing the student with helper jobs around the class. So each of these strategies that we've just gone through are highly effective in facilitating engagement and preventing overstimulation. This takes us to discussing why these evidence-based strategies actually help. And as we know, behavior management is an essential component to a productive classroom. And by implementing an explicit visual procedure, it also provides the teacher with an invaluable resource for both non-verbally and verbally redirecting students to their task. And as we can see in this diagram, by not implementing intervention from the outset, it can lead to the characterized behavior we previously talked about. And over here in relation to our PBS framework, providing visual task procedures aligns with a tier 1 level of support as it provides all students with a valuable instructional resource. However, other strategies such as adjusting worksheets to reduce overstimulation, reducing workload, or providing breaks to prevent frustration can be considered a tier 3 level of intensive support. Now, If there is still difficult behavior occurring after strategies have already been implemented, additional, more intensive support may be required. Now, it's really important to remember no one strategy is effective on all students with ADHD. Effective intervention takes place on a case by case basis. Every kid is different, and extra support is often needed for supporting teachers in this process. So don't be disheartened. Seek help from your school's available diversity team to start discussing possible options for extra support that you may need. Now, as always, thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email anytime. Thank you.